Among the questions we often get asked by strategy teachers thinking about how to add dynamics to what they do is, how exactly do I get started? Because it seems like quite a lot of ideas and materials and content, some of them really quite new and unfamiliar. So what is the least I need to know to make any contribution to my strategy teaching at all with these dynamics ideas? So this short video just explains a little bit of that and shows some demonstrations of these approaches from the course. So here's the full strategy dynamics agenda, and the way we've broken it out is that first 4 classes basically set out the core framework that enable you to put together the simplest possible picture of how a business actually works and delivers performance. The later classes go on to add important and powerful extensions to that core. They can either be added to a full strategic analysis, or some of these are extremely useful just on their own. And in the later classes, those 2 are extensions, but they deal with some slightly more complex and tricky issues. And you'll find information on what exactly we mean by the topics under each of these classes if you have a look at the overview tabs in the course pages for each class. So this set of 10 classes is the whole course, and there is a very substantial body of material which is freely available to you as a teacher for you to learn from, and much of it is available for you to actually pick up and teach with yourself. We're clearly not going to suggest that you dive in and try to do the whole of that as your first effort at teaching dynamics in your strategy teaching. We're going to start with the pieces that go to make up that core dynamic analysis for a simple business, just those first 4 classes, and class 4 itself is actually quite a rich agenda, so we split that into 2 separate parts. So what you get in each class of that first part is, first of all, slideshow videos of about 20 to 30 minutes. The summary classes, that's it, that's all you need to do. There are additional class segments of typically 10 to 15 minutes as well, but this summary segment alone should be enough to get going in most cases. Those classes also include real-world examples from quite a range of different settings, plus working dynamic models to illustrate how those real-world examples actually play out. Now, to support all this and allow people to try applying these frameworks in their own situation, there are also working models in the form of worksheets in the software that supports this course called Systea. If you go to that link, you can see some of those. However, even that step may be quite a challenge if you've never come across this whole idea before. So you might be reassured to discover that you can start with even less, actually much, much less than trying to do even those 4 classes. So let me explain and demonstrate what some of those smaller steps might be. The course starts with clarifying this point that the focus of strategy needs to be about how an organisation is going to improve its performance over time. We're not interested in static ratios. We want to grow profits. We want to win customers, that kind of thing. So the very least you need, which will enable a rich discussion on almost any case example you care to think about, is a way of thinking about why this business has performed as it has up to now, where its future performance might possibly go, and how the management of the case might expect to do better than a less attractive future might turn out to be. So let me just give you an example of that from the course itself. Let's have a look at Europe's most successful low-fare airline, which is Ryanair. And here is the record of this company's actual profits up to 2012. And you can see that there was a pretty substantial downturn in profits in 2009 compared with 2008. And that followed a pretty severe recession, which hit air travel generally. And that recession kind of carried on into 2010. But this company cut fares to sustain the passenger volumes during that time. And you can see that far from seeing a drop in the number of passenger journeys they sold, they actually saw an increase. So that fall in profits is more to do with the reduction in fares that they pushed through to keep that passenger growth going than it is to do with loss of passengers. Other airlines were far less able to deal with this situation than Ryanair was. If we're looking for an overall plan for the whole organisation here, we want a future plan for this whole airline to do with more routes and aircraft, continue growing passenger volumes, doing so at good fares so that we grow profits and we follow that green line on those charts. Or will it be fewer growth opportunities, difficult market conditions and competition, forcing us to lower fares again and hitting our profits? Those are our two alternative futures. So that short segment from one of the Class 1 videos shows how simply putting that time chart of performance on the board and having a discussion with your class adds a quite rich and important dimension to the discussion of any case example that you happen to be looking at. The next least you need to know, you might be surprised that we've jumped from 1 to 3 here, but there's a reason for that, which is that the topic in Class 3 is itself rather simple and self-contained. So this idea also enables you to have a rich discussion concerning almost any case example about why the sales of the business are rising or falling, why are they rising and falling at the rate that they are doing, and we want to do strategy so we can make better decisions, improve things for the future. So it also helps you have a rich discussion about what the case example business might do to build customers and sales into the future. Alternatively, you can simply use the working models of real-world examples that are actually included in the class. But as I say, you can have this discussion about other case examples too. Now, although I've used sales as an example here, and very often we are concerned about how to win and retain customers so that sales grow rather than decline, the same principle of resources accumulating and depleting applies to other assets as well. So you might be worried about, can we build and sustain the number of staff we need, for example, or what should we be doing to extend and enrich our product range? So let me just give you an example which does focus on the growth and retention of customers in a particular case. And this too is a short snippet from one of the class videos. So this is a case of a well-known and popular over-the-counter drug, and it's facing some problems. The marketing people are a bit worried here because although the number of consumers using the drug is growing each year, as you can see in the stock there, in spite of that, the sales of the drug are actually falling. Not very fast, but reasonably steadily and continually year on year. Now, if total sales are falling, but the number of consumers is increasing, then the usage per person must be falling faster than total sales. What we want to know then is what's happening to that stock of consumers. Now, you can see that the number has increased from 22.2 million last year to 23 million this year, and you might think for a well-established popular product like this that there wouldn't be a very fast turnover rate of customers. This is about just under 5% of customers being lost each year at 1 million. Now, if it's gone up from 22.2 to 23 and you've lost 1 million, then you must have won 1.8 million. That's the only way those numbers reconcile. That may be what you'd expect, but in fact, the numbers here are quite different. The number of customers being lost is actually 2.9 million, not 1. That's about 13 or 14% churn in the consumer base for this product. And if that's the number of consumers you've lost, then you must be winning them at a really rapid rate over there on the left of 3.7 million per year. A rather interesting point about this example is that this company did not know that number on the right and did not therefore know what the number was on the left. They only went and found out when the colleague of mine who did this work told them it was a really important number and they ought to go find out. What they discovered from this is that they had a very good win rate for new users, so their new user marketing was working very well, but they were losing people quickly as well. Now, the only way that you can reconcile all this is if new people that the company is winning are actually buying less volume of the product than the people who are leaving. So we're losing heavy users of the product and we're winning low volume users. As a result, the focus of the marketing switch to retaining heavy users How do they do that? Well, repackage the product differently for heavy users compared with low volume users. Basically, heavy users are parents buying the product for the whole family, where they're looking for larger quantities and low price, whereas the new users tend to be young adults buying this product for themselves for the first time, and they would tend to not buy quite such large quantities. So the company repackaged the larger quantities for the heavy users and introduced a price differential. They also adopted different promotion and merchandising policies for different types of stores and different shelf positions in the stores for the different packages of the product. And they also figured out that an awful lot of the money they were spending on marketing for new users was being wasted because they were winning all the new users they could win anyway, and they could actually spend less money on marketing to win new users. The result of all this was that they turned it round from a sales decline to a growing sales pattern, whilst actually spending less on marketing than they were before. So that's a good result on both counts. So that brief extract from one of the class videos shows how important this principle of accumulating resources actually is, and hopefully gives you a sense that you could have a rich discussion with your class about that mechanism for pretty much any decent strategy case that you happen to be talking about. So the third step you might take is to go back to the topic in class 2 and think about this question of what resources in a particular business model actually drive the performance and results of that business. And we split that into thinking about resources that drive demand and sales, typically, obviously, customers in most cases, but often there are intermediaries involved and other sales channels. And separately, what kinds of resources drive costs? Clearly, capacity drives costs and staff drive costs. And there are other items as well. So you can have a pretty rich discussion about other case examples on those two questions also. In the process, this class raises the question about what exactly are these things called resources, and you can discuss that question in relation to the ideas in the resource-based view of strategy. You may want to have a little look forward to Class 9. It's just a short piece in Class 9 that talks about tangible intangibles and capabilities. But armed with that insight, then you can have this discussion about what exactly are resources driving performance in the particular case that you're looking at. Or you can simply use working models that are included in the classes that we've provided for you. So once again, let's have a look at a short video segment from one of the classes. So in general then, resources drive performance. So here is this company, and I've highlighted the operating profit over on the right hand side, which is the thing we're trying to explain. And customers drive sales and revenue, staff drive staff costs, and the machines drive the fixed costs and the depreciation costs. That's not quite the end of the story, because you'll see there are one or two other items on this page. Up at the top there, you've got the price we're charging. The price is a decision we take. We'll see later on it has some other pretty important consequences, but the immediate consequence is that revenue comes from units sold multiplied by unit price, and that's a decision that we've taken. The other item here is the cost of goods, the cost of those bits of plastic that we buy from big plastics manufacturers to melt down and turn into these containers. Those are bought-in costs. They're not driven by one of these resources. By the time you've covered those three building blocks, you should be reasonably comfortable with the underlying principles that you can go on to the next stage and develop a core dynamic analysis for a simple business. You should be able to lay this picture out on the whiteboard at front of class and get help and guidance from the students and encourage them to help you lay that structure out properly and show the relationships in that. Once again, you might prefer simply to use the working models of real-world examples that we've included in the class. So that's taken you through 3 or 4 of the fundamental basic steps that will get you and your students comfortable with this idea of how a strategy dynamics analysis of a business situation actually works, and how you can use it for looking out to the future to think about what kinds of decisions and actions a business might need to take to grow its future performance. This is a step-by-step learning process for teachers. So use simple frameworks in discussions, use those small models in class, and then maybe you're feeling confident enough that you can actually add a complete dynamics class to your course. So after some practice, you should know enough to combine everything from classes 1 to 4 into a complete class. But once again, you can use the examples and models from our course too.